Film Dive Podcast.
And it was just sequel after sequel after sequel.
There was no character development at all.
Just that on pure technical levels.
There are filmmakers that don't want it just to be an entertainment experience.
Hello and welcome to Media Academy Online's Film Dive Podcast. And today we're going to be talking about Dreamworks Animation.
Dreamworks, one of the newest to the block.
Where dreams work.
Dreamworks it's effectively a studio, so they do live action as well. We're focusing just on their animation arm in this video.
Yep. Because we've been talking about animation studios for the last few weeks, so we want to continue that momentum.
Yep.
And sort of do as many as we can, because we just love animation.
Yeah, so this is building up a big series of ours, all about animation. And now this one's a bit of a special one, because a few years ago at Acme, so in Melbourne we have Acme, which is Australian Centre for the Moving Image, which is effectively a museum dedicated completely to the moving image. So games, movies, TV shows, anything screen-based.
Yeah.
And we had a great period there when we had all of the big studios that were coming and having exhibitions at Acme. So we had Pixar, we had Disney, and we've also had Dreamworks.
The big three.
If I can carry this book. So on screen, if you're watching this on YouTube, right now I'm holding up one of the big books from the exhibition. So I actually went to one of their masterclasses for this. So I've got some great insight to share with everyone. And I also went to the interview of Jeffrey Katzenberg, who is one of the founders. A little bit of background about Dreamworks. So Dreamworks was founded by 3 different people. So firstly, it was Katzenberg. It was
Steven
Spielberg.
And David Geffen.
Who is from music fame. So he's
Geffen Records.
So he's from the music world. So we've got Katzenberg, who was from Disney. Things went sour at Disney, so he left.
And gave Spielberg a call, apparently, and said, hey, mate, let's do this.
And then Spielberg's like, well, I've got money, so
Yeah.
why not?
Yeah, I've been wanting to stick my foot in Disney as well, so let's do it.
Yeah. Since we're on the conversation of Spielberg and Disney, so you know that nice fancy house that Iron Man has, and then that gets destroyed.
Oh, yeah.
That house is actually Spielberg's house.
Is it?
Yeah.
What, not Stark Towers?
You remember how he had one overlooking the bay?
Yeah, I know that one.
The bay. That's actually
Spielberg's?
So Spielberg's house.
Oh, shit. Oh, I did not know that.
And you can actually see it if you go to Hollywood and you look straight up. You go anywhere on that southern side of like the fancy glittery part of Hollywood,
and you
can look straight up and there's a house overlooking everything, a white house, and that is Spielberg. Now I'm getting carried away here, so let's get back onto our conversation.
One of his houses, anyway.
Dreamworks. The first animation they made was Antz, which this was effectively interesting story that happened when Katzenberg left Disney. That was all sour and bad. Katzenberg decided that he will try and stick it to Pixar.
Yeah.
So what you started seeing was all of these films that were almost clones of what Pixar were creating.
Mimicking Pixar.
So first of all, it was Antz, which was a rip-off of A Bug's Life.
Yeah.
Which is very interesting. And this continues. And as we go through this list, we'll point out which ones are the rip-offs.
Yeah. There's a lot of them.
So, and it's a bit of a shame, but that's what was happening. There was a rift between Katzenberg and Steve Jobs. This is what happens. Anyway.
2 moguls just going at it.
Yeah.
I mean, my history with Antz is a bit different than most people's, because everyone hates that film. And I didn't. So I'm like one of the few, I think.
The thing that I don't like about it is just the imagery. It's just so brown.
It is. You're totally right.
The story itself was like whatever, but Yeah, it was
I was just so hooked by the cast.
Mm.
They've always done pretty well at their casting. So.
Yeah. But they've got some beautiful imagery.
Oh.
I'm holding up right now. I don't know if you can see it. My framing's probably going to be way off. But yeah,
look at that.
Their artwork is stunning. In this book, it's just really beautiful.
The concept art and all that is just...
And that's, unfortunately, that's one of the issues with 3D, is that it doesn't translate very well from art sketches from concept design into 3D, because you're building something that's completely different.
And you're losing all those rough edges. You're losing all that human error. And all you're getting is mathematical equations on a screen.
Which, when you're working with 2D or something like that, you're using the concepts as the starting point and you're building on that. So it still looks, it's got that same flavour to it.
Should we go into it right now? Like get into that conversation we were having about this before?
Yeah, let's go into this.
Let's do it. Yeah, because like, I really, really want to get this out there. And it's like, as we go through this podcast, he's going to be showing you imagery of the concept art. And to be honest, that concept art to me is everlasting. It's beautiful, and it has an instant iconic look and feel about them. So it would separate them so far from Pixar and copying what the 3D animation guys, and doing something very unique and special.
I'm looking at this artwork right now, and it's got a very Star Wars feel to it. Like it really, it's, and I'll probably show a lot of it in the little graphic, but the artwork of it is really,
and that's the thing, like
it's really mythical. It feels really great. If
DreamWorks really wanted to stick it to Disney, they should have mastered and almost done like that amalgamation of the old Disney style 2D animation, right? Mixed in with 3D, almost like what the Lego movies, how they kind of made it look like it was stop motion. Yeah. But they should have almost made it look like it was hand drawn.
We mentioned before the new Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse.
Yeah, exactly.
Like that was utilizing, like it was a 3D, it was built in 3D, but they built in the engine to make it look like it was comic.
Animated. That's right. Yeah. And that's the thing, like it just frustrates me when I look through the artworks. I'm like, it looks so amazing. And 3D animation dates. It's not like they're going to go back and add all this detail and all this sort of stuff to these old films. What's going to happen is these films are just going to get so outdated and boring and bland looking, which they are now. Rant over. I mean,
the film itself, like to me, it was just very brown. And I must, this is in context, right? I didn't see this until after I saw A Bug's Life, which is one of my favourite animations.
Yeah, well, that'll do it.
And so, looking at A Bug's Life, which is just, everything is just, it's its whole world, and it looks wonderful and beautiful and colourful, and the characters are perfect, and it really felt like you're in a different place. You're transported into the macro world. Yeah. Where this stuff here
was kind of not quite right.
It didn't. I didn't get transported in the same way.
And they have a much more adult sensibility to them, because the actors they cast in their film, well, that one especially, no kids would know who they are, really. And there's a reason for that. So Katzenberg, when he was at Disney, he'd always push to have it more what he would call edgy. Right.
Has to be edgy.
Right.
And so every film they were making at that time, he wanted to have this edge to it. And so, and in his version of edgy was that very like adult.
Put Woody Allen in it as the main actor.
And you got Stallone. That's why we're seeing that transformation. Now he's in charge, and he can do whatever he wants. We saw that.
It's pretty full on.
But it's interesting because you can tell that they're clearly finding their feet at these early stages. Because then we go on to the next film, which was A Prince of Egypt, and that was a completely different story yet again. Yeah, yeah. Which is very interesting.
Well, this is like when their film, or this film in particular, Prince of Egypt, that is, seemed more like a Disney film than what Disney were doing at that time.
Absolutely. This film, this is one of, this is probably I wouldn't say but it's probably one of my favorite 2D animation films of all time.
Yeah,
it is just stunning.
It is
and giant and huge. It is an epic. It is a blockbuster film.
That like pure Ten Commandments, Ben-Hur, sort of, you know, embodied in that massive epic biblical film.
Yeah.
You know, and that's exactly what it is.
The story itself is like, you know, something we all know. Like, I'm not religious. I'm not going to pretend I am, but I can still appreciate it for
absolutely,
a work of art.
Yeah, totally.
You know, the directors here, there's 3 directors here. Brenda Chapman, Steve Hackner, and Simon Wells.
Yep.
So you can clearly see why they needed 3 directors on this one.
Yeah, most of their films do have a few directors, I've noticed.
But again, like, you can see the difference. Like, you look at this artwork, and that looks like a screen grab from the film itself. Like, that film was beautiful because they could translate that from the film because it's using the same medium. It's still using drawn illustrations. One of those films that just oozes spectacle.
Look at that. The colours, the vibrancy, but you know, you get that nice contrast where it's deep, rich colours and dark blacks.
Yeah.
And
that's probably a good word. Is the contrast.
It's rich in the contrast.
Hard to create stylized imagery like this in the computer.
Yeah,
you're limited. It always comes out looking
everything. It all looks shiny.
Yeah,
it's very hard to make things look weathered and rough.
Yeah,
and natural because the computer does not know how to make, you know, what do you call them, like errors, like say like you know, everything's got to be input as codes or something, like erosion or something like that, or waves or drops or rain, or, you know, they've got all these kind of systems in place for it, but it always seems like it's being organized, whereas a hand-drawn sort of picture, you know, has mistakes in it or human element, which is what.
Look at this one. This is one of the ones from the director.
Oh,
you can just see
that is just so cool.
So it's just great. Yeah, but it's right. It's the amount, and we're getting to a stage now where we are starting to see this.
Looking back on.
Yeah, and they're mixing the two, which is really interesting. A Disney short called Paperman is a good example.
Okay, I gotta watch that. Yeah.
Gotta watch Paperman because it is they use both techniques in the one, and they slap them together, and it looks really good.
Yeah. I'm just so surprised they haven't explored that. Like,
yeah, it effectively did start out that way, where
3D
uses were to complement 2D.
Yeah.
That's how it started. As you said, Titan,
AE,
Atlantis.
Yes,
that had the same words. They used 3D because it, you know,
to stretch, to add more, and
to expand the
scope and
the scope of 2D animation to make it better. But then 2D became its thing because of Pixar. Pixar happened, and then The Road to El Dorado.
Oh yes,
this is probably one of the most underrated animations I can think of.
Yeah, I love this film.
It's just the amount of wit and the amount of classy animation, the storytelling is spot on.
Yeah. The voice acting as well.
The voice acting.
The character, you know, the character designs and the jungle. Yeah.
Which is the thing with this one.
Nailed it.
Is that it's based off. There was a film series that was going for like 20 years from 1940 to 1960, and they're known as the Road to series.
Yeah.
So they'd have Road to Bali, they'd have Road to all these different places. Done by
Bing Crosby and the other guy.
They had this successful series, and those series were built on not taking themselves too seriously, where they would do things like break the fourth wall and talk to the audience, and they'd make fun of their own industry. And I remember seeing one where they're holding like an Academy Award in the film.
Okay.
And there was one where the film was ending, and the guy wasn't happy with how it was ending. So every time they had the
Thing
the
come
end
down.
thing come down, he'd push it back.
Oh,
And
yeah,
it was a
yeah.
little playing with, no,
yeah.
it's not the end. And the end anyway.
Yeah, yeah.
Stuff like that was really fun.
Pretty revolutionary thing at that time.
Yeah,
like
definitely.
That sense of humour.
And then
Comedy.
it never really, you didn't see too much of it since.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
but this,
Of its time.
yeah, this film was kind of like taking that idea and using 2D animation to actually take them to somewhere that doesn't exist.
Yeah.
Which
It's great.
was
It's a great
Dorado,
idea.
which is a place we all know, the city of gold.
Yeah. Such a cool story.
But yeah, just the wit and the banter between the two, and you can a lot of that I reckon would have been improvised. Look at these ones. Woo woo.
Look at those colours. It's just amazing. Kenneth Branagh and Kevin Kline.
But even that the love interest in there, that lady, where she kind of, it was interesting because they didn't try and paint her as like what Hollywood likes to do, is like, you know, this
Typical
perfect angel,
prissy
perfect,
kind of princess thing.
yeah,
Yeah.
where she was just rough, and they weren't trying to fit her in any category. It was just that's who she was, and it was good. It was a breath of fresh air in that respect. Underneath all that, the themes between between those two characters, like the idea of, you know, we've got all this gold, we could go home, we could go back, and we could be kings.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then, you know, playing with the idea, but we could stay here, you know, and just playing with the two
Kind of ideologies or
Yeah.
what. And then you got Elton John who narrated it too.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I actually think those songs, I still remember those days.
Really good. Really good.
He's good at his musicals. He's always been
Yeah.
great with his musicals. And then we had Chicken Run.
Yeah, I saw this at the cinema.
Me too.
Yeah, yeah. And I loved it. I thought it was great. You know, I was a big fan of Wallace and Gromit, so this was just a natural extension from that, you know.
It did have that Wallace and Gromit feel to it.
Yeah, and the character designs,
The
all of
Aardman.
it. Yeah, very Aardman. And I loved it. It was
Directed by Peter Lord and Nick Park.
yeah, those two. Yeah,
Mm.
yeah. Really thought that was a great kind of. It's dark, you know. Great
Yeah.
animation. It's dark and all that. And
Yeah.
Mel Gibson, you know, who we grew up with, and
Yeah.
you know.
In this book, they've got the breakdown of all the armatures.
Yeah.
The armatures is all of the rigging and stuff underneath the characters. So they have to build them, and it's very interesting because I made quite a few myself in the past, is that you have to be able to build something that is rigid. So it will keep its position. However, it has to be able to be bent just enough when you want it to, and
Yeah.
then stop. It's very difficult because a lot of things, when you let go, you want to pose it, and you let go, it'll move positions very slightly or something like that.
Yeah.
And the thing is, you need it to stay perfect. You need it to not do that. So to be able to bend it on will but not lose its shape as soon as you let go is very difficult. And then the other thing is, you know, you need to be able to bend an arm and make sure that it doesn't tilt a little bit. The whole body doesn't tilt,
the rest of it.
anything
Yeah.
like that. So
just Peter Lord, the director of Chicken Run, one of them. He started off doing a sort of like a Gumby show called The Amazing Adventures of Morph. I don't know if you ever saw that.
no.
But this
Oh right.
yeah, this
Oh, that's good.
cartoon.
Wow.
I remember this.
Do you?
Yeah, Morph.
It's very Gumby, you're right. And that in the 90s, that's all, like, in terms of stop motion animation, we were seeing tons of like that simple basic stuff. I remember there was this little thing they played for years on the ABC, which is like a channel we've got, where it was just balls changing colours.
Yes, I
Do you
remember that.
it?
Yeah. I bet you this guy did that.
Yeah,
The Morph
could have been.
Files. That's the one. That's the show. It was mid-90s. The
Right.
Morph Files.
Yeah, well that's
Aardman
right
Presents.
around that time.
Yeah, right. And then from there, you know, I guess he was a part of Aardman, really. And then he did the latest one, the Pirates one.
Yeah, okay.
But it's just interesting to see that these animators, they're around for 30 years and, you know, or more, and they're still going. Like, you know, it's crazy. It's like, I love it.
That's the thing. It's with directing stop motion is very interesting.
Yeah.
Because you need to understand it inside out. You need to be able to direct in the mind of a stop motion animator, and it's very different to any other kind of animation.
Yeah.
There isn't let's just give it a crack and see how it goes. Like you can do that in 3D. You can do that in live action. You cannot do it. You have to plan that shot completely before and make sure you're happy before that animator starts, because they can't get halfway through and give it another crack. They have to start again from scratch. and with stop motion animation is they're only making a few seconds a week. It takes them ages. It takes a long time to create this kind of animation. So to say, oh, I'm not happy with that shot, let's just give it a quick shot, another go.
Yeah.
It's all right. Well, give me 2 months and I'll do it again, kind of thing. So that's why I think we keep seeing all of these stop motion animators, the directors stick around, is because you need someone who understands it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so very
Who's
interesting.
been through the trenches and all.
Yeah. Moving on, we got Shrek. So the beginnings of DreamWorks as a powerhouse.
Yes.
This is what started it. And I remember when I saw when I was in the front row of a interview with Katzenberg, he said this was their moment where they found their voice. That was effectively his words. Where he said that when Shrek happened, we happened.
Yeah.
This is when we knew, because before this stage they were trying so many different things. That's why every film that came out was so different from one another. We had Antz, which is a rip-off, but then we had,
Prince of Egypt, El Dorado,
and they're all three completely different animations.
Chicken Run.
And Chicken Run, that's right. And Chicken Run, I forgot about Chicken Run.
Yeah.
They're all completely different.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden Shrek happened and became like this giant, huge thing.
And they're like, okay, here's our style. We can build off this now.
I'm staring at this. I don't know. I'll hold it up. Look at the difference.
Yeah.
From what the original designs were.
A little bit less detail in the 3D models, I think.
Yep. Very much so.
A little more kid friendly.
And this one's different. This one's interesting because when I'm looking through these photos, I don't feel Shrek in any of these. The Shrek we got.
Looks more like Alice in Wonderland.
Yeah. Feels more like Tangled.
Yeah, Tangled.
And it's an interesting film because this was the film that was making fun of Disney.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
from like the whole idea of Disney.
Yeah. It was well, let's make fun of fairy tales, what Disney have been doing for
forever,
years or however long they had been doing it since that point. 80 years.
We have been ripping you guys off, but it's time to find our voice while still dissing you through that voice.
Yeah.
So it's crazy how they built their identity off that idea.
But I remember when this came out, I would have been around 11. So this was my demographic. Like I thought this was the funniest.
Yeah, I really enjoyed it. I loved it. But at the same time, I think I was just getting to that point where I was kind of like,
well, you're just a little bit older than me, so it's just
I think if I was your age when it came out, I probably would have ate it up even more. But
but it was interesting because it did have its style, and I have seen that style continue with DreamWorks
till this
since.
day,
and you can tell when they discovered that, let's just
here it is,
do it.
And that's I was always surprised with how popular Shrek was, actually.
Yes, there's a cinema that used to be near me. This really old crappy building, and I just remember going up those escalators and seeing this giant cutout of this big Shrek, this big ogre creature. I'm like, what is that? I was seeing some other film that day anyway, but I just keep remembering. And then I walked out and I saw it again. I'm like, what is that?
It's just stuck with you.
And I didn't know what it was until my sister bought on VHS.
You didn't get to see it at the cinema?
I didn't see it in the cinema.
Oh, I saw it at the cinema.
I just remember seeing just the cutout.
Yeah,
this big giant thing. I'm like, what is that?
Yeah, right.
But then I saw it on VHS, and then I thought it was the funniest thing.
I think the music in it is what really had a widespread appeal.
That's probably
Smash Mouth. Somebody wants,
all those songs just went straight to the charts again.
Yeah. And I think that's what. And Eddie Murphy as the donkey.
Yeah.
I think those two elements is what really made this film work.
And that's interesting because in many ways it was a musical in terms of
absolutely
in terms of
setup.
The setup, like the music was put in there. They put that song in there to enhance the story, which that's what musicals
and
are
the
built
momentum,
for.
the speed of the film, and
And that's what musicals are. We're used to the Disney kind of musicals, which is let's start singing a song.
Yeah.
But this was not that. It was let's try and reinvent the musical, and that's what they did. I feel they were very successful in that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
With the choices of music and using the music to further the story, which is just amazing.
Yeah. Yeah. It was a good mixture of things. Finally, they got something that had, you know, it was utilizing all the things done before, but it was just putting it into a package that worked.
Yeah.
And it worked. Somehow, it just did. Even an ugly character like Shrek, you know, ultimately became such a lovable character.
Well, that's the thing. It was very heartwarming in the story. Like, it was this guy that was ultimately misunderstood, and he puts on this hard shell because he lives in a world that everyone hates him.
He's an ogre.
And so what can you do? All you can do is put in a hard shell. Deep down, you're hating life, but you have to, you know, and you're closing yourself off from society because you feel like you don't belong.
Yeah.
And so what else can you... And that's why. You know, but then we find out as the story goes on that he's a really lovely, nice person inside. He just needed that, you know, people
that
to show
moment.
him... People to show him that he, you know, he is a person deep down. And,
Yeah, true. Yeah. He's not just an ogre. You're a nice ogre.
And the play on the princess from something that wasn't all this prissy and perfect and everything, and changing the princess to someone that was just down to earth and just didn't care about anything.
True. It's got a good reversal there.
Yeah, so that was very interesting with the characters, where you can see where their inspiration was, but their inspiration was like anti-inspiration. It's the complete opposite of what that was.
Kind of like what they were doing with the whole film, the whole setup, the whole idea of it. It's kind of like that.
Yeah,
it's kind of flipping things a bit and tilting it. And Mike Myers as well. I just want to mention, you know, this is probably his last successful kind of thing that he did.
To this day, he's still writing off.
Yeah,
getting some odd jobs here and there off the Shrek.
Yeah,
she's still doing. So
yeah, fair enough.
Keeping him paid, I suppose. Keeping him in work.
Yeah.
In these Corona days, I suppose you can do what you can do.
Do a few voices for video games or something. I don't know.
Moving on, Spirit.
Didn't see it.
I think I saw it, but
it looks bloody gorgeous, and I remember it.
Yeah, I think I did see it, but I don't remember the story or anything.
Yeah.
It obviously wasn't that memorable. So I guess, look at some pretty photos, and then we're moving on. Sorry, guys. This came out just after Shrek, so obviously they were working on this before they found their
voice.
ingredient. They found their voice.
Get this one out.
Let's just get it out.
Move on. A Western. A bloody Western, you know, in 2D, rich 2D animation. What more could you ask for? I mean, I know I'd eat that up in a heartbeat. But it just didn't happen.
Yeah.
Unfortunately.
And then Sinbad, so we're still seeing this continuation.
Yeah, Sinbad. So they were still, I suppose, in pre-production on these maybe before Shrek
these
blew up. I guess Shrek was probably the risky one at that time.
And that's the thing with hand-drawn animation, the development is just so long.
Yeah.
Just takes so long to get going.
Yeah.
So Shrek came out in 2001. This is 2003. They would have already been working on this one. They would have been.
And that's, like, I love that film because I've always been a fan of Sinbad and the mythical creatures and that whole idea. But those drawings just look amazing, like better than the...
Absolutely, yeah.
They look better than the film. I think the film's got a lot of 3D elements in it as well. It's enhanced by 3D, but the 2D animation itself lacks that detail, which is pretty standard in a lot of these movies. From the concept art to the final animation, obviously they can't be putting in that much detail because it's way too much work. But I don't know, if they could, it would be something special.
Yeah, you can see they were trying to continue their
El Dorado,
Prince of Egypt kind of style again. It's sort of got like that kind of flavour to it.
They did like a trilogy of them, those three.
Yeah. And then they're like, that's it.
Yeah, that was the last one. They pulled the pin.
I do remember when they announced that they weren't going to do hand-drawn anymore.
Yeah.
It's a bit sad. It was a sad day for everyone.
It was kind of like that time when Titan AE came out. That flopped as well. Atlantis flopped.
Yeah.
You know, Sinbad flopped, and it was just like, okay, Shrek it is.
Yeah, it's a bit of a shame, like, that 2D animation got the blame for bad, films that weren't successful. Because, I guess they needed something to blame, and all these films that are 3D are doing really well. But at the end of the day, it was the stories. It always comes back to the story.
I think there also could be an element of... I can't remember the phrase or the saying, but when a franchise needs to die, kill that franchise, and then they wait dormant for like so many years and then come out with something. And then it's like, forget about that stuff. Here's the new stuff, and everyone loves it again. It's almost like that refresher phase where it's like, They almost needed to kind of kill 2D animation to bring in 3D animation across the board.
Yeah.
So it was probably that transition there where they're like, okay, just release Sinbad. We'll keep going with Sinbad. We'll keep going with Spirit. If they flop, good, because now we can just roll out the 3D from now on and shut up all that nonsense about keeping 2D alive, because, you know, they needed that hard reason.
Yeah.
You know, to go, okay, that's the past, this is the future.
Out of reasons, like that's a pretty good reason. Looking at ones and zeros, it makes sense, but looking at it as an art form, it's a different story. But
I guess to shut down a whole industry does take a lot of... you need the numbers, you know. Shrek is getting the numbers, and you go, well, you can't argue with that.
We got to give credit to some studios, like Disney has still keeping the 2D alive in terms of TV shows. Like they're still pushing out TV shows, but it's just a shame we don't have any of those big giant blockbuster
massive things, projects.
And especially since like Studio Ghibli, like we did those last. If you haven't listened to our previous podcasts, go listen to Studio Ghibli, because we talked about them, and that's all they do. Like that's their culture. That is what they do. They haven't tried and done 3D. So it's interesting. Even after they had huge successes with their films, especially even here in the West, where they're winning Academy Awards.
It's funny, isn't it?
It's still funny that they didn't say, oh, okay, maybe we should give it another go. They just said, nah. So thanks for watching this first half. We're going to continue our conversation with DreamWorks in the next one.
We'll see you in part 2. Thanks for watching. Adios.